All right, everybody, get ready because today we're going deep, diving headfirst into Aleister Crowley's Book of Lies.
Yeah, strap in. It's going to be a wild one.
No kidding, we're talking 91 chapters, each one packed with these cryptic teachings, symbolic riddles, all delivered with Crowley's, shall we say, unique sense of humor.
Definitely not your average beach read.
Not unless your idea of a relaxing day involves deciphering occult mysteries between sips of, I don't know, absinthe.
Something like that.
But seriously, folks, we're here to be your guides through this labyrinth of ideas. We'll break down the core themes, unpack the symbolism, all that good stuff, so you can walk away feeling like you've actually had a genuine encounter with Crowley's thought.
Because, honestly, beneath all the, let's call it eccentricity, there's some seriously interesting stuff going on in the Book of Lies.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the most intriguing things Crowley does is he claims he's revealing a supreme secret in this book.
Right, like he's giving you the keys to the kingdom, or at least the keys to his kingdom.
Exactly. And he even suggests the secret is connected to the OTO, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is that magical order Crowley was deeply involved with. So we've got secret societies, hidden truths. This is already getting good.
It's classic Crowley. He loves to dangle these tantalizing mysteries in front of you, get you hooked. But did he ever actually explain how he stumbled upon this so-called secret?
You know, he did. He tells this really fascinating story about having a sudden insight. Apparently, he'd written a chapter that even he didn't fully understand at first.
Wait, hold up. Even Crowley didn't get what he was writing.
That's what he claims. But then he says this chapter, as confusing as it was, sparked some kind of realization, like a key unlocking a hidden door in his mind. And that's supposedly what led him to a deeper understanding of different mystical traditions.
So instead of just giving us a straight answer, he's presenting us with a journey of discovery.
Exactly. And it plays into the whole theme of the book, right? I mean, the title itself is The Book of Lies. Crowley is messing with us from the start, making us question the nature of truth and falsehood.
He was all about challenging conventional thinking. He believed that to really understand anything, you had to break free from rigid ways of seeing the world. And he uses paradox and contradiction constantly, almost like he's trying to shatter your preconceptions.
It's like he's using words as weapons, right? He even says something like that in chapter 31, The Garrote.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. It's like he's taking your mind hostage and forcing you to see things from a new perspective.
So how are we supposed to even approach a book that seems designed to challenge every assumption we have?
Well, Crowley himself emphasized personal experience over dogma. He'd say you have to find your own truth, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. Like in chapter 39, The Luby, where he writes that whole, a luby to thee and a booby to me, a Belasius ruby to God, maybe. It's nonsense, right?
Total gibberish, but I kind of love it.
Exactly. It's like he's saying what one person finds ridiculous, another person might find profound, even as divine. Truth is subjective.
It's like those optical illusions, you know? Two people can look at the same image and see completely different things.
Exactly. And Crowley isn't interested in spoon-feeding you answers. He wants you to grapple with the material, wrestle with it, and come to your own conclusions. He even does this hilarious thing in chapter 22, The Despot. The chapter itself is this kind of tongue-in-cheek observation about waiters in fancy restaurants, and then Crowley adds a little commentary at the end. Comment would only mar the supreme simplicity of this chapter.
He's trolling us. Like, I've said something incredibly profound, but I refuse to explain it.
He's daring us to find the deeper meaning, even if it's not there.
So you're saying the secret Crowley keeps hinting at might not be some kind of concrete answer, but a way of thinking, a process of questioning and self-discovery.
I think that's a big part of it. It's like he's saying the real journey is the one we take within ourselves, challenging our own assumptions and discovering what we truly believe. As we dive deeper into the Book of Lies, it's important to keep that in mind. Crowley isn't trying to give you all the answers. He's trying to help you ask better questions. You know, as you're wandering through the twisted corridors of the Book of Lies, you're going to keep bumping into these recurring symbols.
Oh, totally. The swan, the hawk, the stag beetle. It's like a whole menagerie in here.
Right. But Crowley's not just being whimsical here. These aren't just random animal cameos. He's assigning very specific meanings to each one.
It's like he's created his own secret language, a symbolic code to crack alongside his already cryptic writing. So what's the deal with these creatures? What kind of deeper meanings is he attaching to them?
Well, a lot of them relate to this idea of duality, which is a big deal for Crowley. This idea that existence is all about the interplay between these seemingly opposite forces, like male and female, life and death, even silence and speech. He's saying that dance between opposites is fundamental to, like, everything.
I can see that. There's this constant push and pull, right?
Right.
Creation and destruction, order and chaos. You can't have one without the other.
You got it. And he uses those symbols to illustrate those forces, like take the stag beetle.
With those crazy horns.
Exactly. Those horns, that's that raw primal energy, the kind that fuels both creation and destruction. It's a potent reminder that sometimes you got to embrace a little chaos to make way for something new.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But then you've got something like the swan, which is all grace and serenity, right? It's like the
Yeah.
picture of tranquility. How does that fit into Crowley's world of, duality and upheaval?
Well, that's where Crowley throws in a twist. He describes the swan as this symbol of the illusion of stillness.
Illusion? What do you mean?
Well, on the surface, the swan, it looks all calm and peaceful, right? Gliding along without a care.
Oh, yeah.
But underneath the water, its feet are paddling like crazy just to stay afloat.
So much for serenity.
Exactly. And that's his whole point. Even when things appear still, there's constant motion, constant change happening beneath the surface. It's like that saying, the only constant is change. Crowley just uses a swan to drive it home.
It's true. All right, so I'm going to hit you with another one of Crowley's greatest hits, Kill Thyself.
Ah, yes. Chapter 1, The Sabbath of the Goat. He comes out swinging with that one.
Totally. It kind of sticks with you. So is he, actually advocating for suicide here?
Not in the literal sense. When Crowley says kill thyself, he's talking about the death of the ego,
Yeah.
shedding your limitations, your sense of self, to achieve a higher state of being.
So more of a symbolic death.
Exactly. It's about embracing transformation, even if it's painful or disruptive. You got to break down the old self to make way for the new.
So when he says kill thyself, he really means transform yourself.
Nailed it. It's another example of Crowley playing with duality. Death, in a symbolic sense, can be a catalyst for growth, kind of like that whole phoenix rising from the ashes imagery.
Destruction and creation all wrapped up in one.
Exactly. And this whole idea of transformation ties into another big theme in the Book of Lies, the idea of a reality beyond human comprehension. Crowley uses terms like IT and that to point towards this ultimate unknowable force that's behind everything.
Okay, those are two words I always trip over. I and that. What exactly do those even refer to in Crowley's system?
Think of IT as the source, the primal, undifferentiated energy that everything comes from. Pure potentiality before form, before consciousness, before anything. And then that is the manifestation of IT.
So like the universe and everything in it.
Exactly. But it's still fundamentally connected to that original source. So IT is like the blank canvas, and that is the masterpiece that emerges from it. But the masterpiece is still inherently part of the canvas.
Whoa, I like that. That's a good way to put it. So even though we experience the world as these separate individuals with our own unique perspectives and all that, Crowley's suggesting we're all ultimately part of this interconnected web, all expressions of that same fundamental energy.
Exactly. And he believed that through certain practices, meditation, ritual, deep introspection, that kind of thing, they could actually pierce through that illusion of separateness and experience that underlying unity directly. But it's a journey, and it's not always easy. It challenges everything you think you know about yourself and the world.
It's almost like he's saying that true understanding requires a kind of surrender,
Right.
a willingness to let go of our preconceived notions and just embrace the mystery of it all. It's kind of daunting when you think about it,
Well,
but also kind of exciting.
totally. And it's an idea that he explores in a really interesting way in the chapter called The Leopard and the Deer, chapter 19. You remember that one?
Yeah, vaguely. Refresh my memory.
Sure. So in that chapter, he uses this analogy from Rudyard Kipling, the Just So Stories guy.
Oh, yeah.
So he uses this analogy to suggest a kind of holy stealth in navigating the world. Basically, it's about learning to adapt to your surroundings, to blend in when necessary, but without ever losing sight of your true self.
Interesting. Kind of like a chameleon, right? It can change its colors to camouflage itself, but no matter what, it's still fundamentally a chameleon.
Perfect analogy. Crowley's encouraging a kind of strategic engagement with the world. He's saying, hey, understand the rules of the game, learn to navigate the complexities of duality and all that, but never compromise your own internal compass.
Don't lose yourself in the process.
Exactly. It's a powerful message, and I think it's one that really resonates with a lot of people. What do you make of this holy stealth idea, listener? Does it resonate with your own experiences? It's definitely something to chew on.
So speaking of intriguing characters, we got to talk about Layla. She pops up throughout the Book of Lies, and she's a bit of an enigma.
Oh, yeah, Layla. She's one of those figures that's tough to pin down. Lover, muse, mystical symbol. The answer's always shifting.
Right. It's like Crowley wanted to keep us guessing. But that ambiguity, it's intentional. It makes you wonder, like, what did Layla represent for him?
Well, on one level, you could say she represents human love and desire, that raw, messy, complicated stuff, like in chapter 55, the drooping sunflower. Crowley's practically pouring his heart out in that one, lamenting her absence. You see a vulnerability there that you don't always get from him.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even though Crowley cultivated this larger-than-life persona, he was still human, right? He wasn't immune to heartbreak or longing or any of that.
Exactly. But like you said, there's more to Layla than just lost love. She seems to embody something that goes beyond the personal. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. There's this yearning there, like she represents something beyond the material world, this spiritual longing that Crowley himself was always striving for.
Right. And it's interesting because a lot of mystical traditions emphasize the feminine aspect of the divine. So it's possible that Layla, at least in part, represents that for Crowley,
Hmm.
a kind of embodiment of wisdom or creative power or spiritual force.
Wow. So she's like a muse, a symbol of spiritual aspiration, maybe even a reflection of Crowley's own inner journey.
I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. And if you think about Layla in relation to those recurring themes we've been talking about, duality, transformation, the search for hidden truths, it adds another layer of complexity.
Totally. Because Crowley often connects her to those themes, like the idea of sacrifice
Yeah.
or the necessity of confronting difficult emotions.
Exactly. And that actually leads us to the final chapters of the Book of Lies, where things get even more, well, Crowley-esque. It's like he's pulling back the curtain even further, hinting at these truths that defy easy explanation.
Oh, totally. Like in chapter 91, the Heikel, that one's a doozy. It's named after a term Crowley defines as, get this, a certain minute whiteness appearing at the extreme end of great blackness.
Yeah.
Even just that title, it's like, what?
Right. Talk about setting the mood. You're expecting something huge, something earth-shattering.
Right. And then the entire chapter is just the word AMN.
It's the ultimate mic drop.
I know. It's like he's leading you to the edge of a cliff, pointing to this breathtaking view, and then silence.
But I think that's the whole point. He
Yeah.
spent the entire book throwing symbols and paradoxes and outrageous statements at us. And then at the end, he's reminding us that some things can't be explained with words. They have to be experienced directly.
It's like he's saying, I've given you the tools, the maps, the compass, but now it's up to you to take the journey. The real destination is the transformation that happens along the way.
Exactly. And that, I think, is the true secret of the Book of Lies.
Hmm.
It's not a single answer, but an invitation to embark on a lifelong journey of self-discovery, of questioning everything, of challenging your own assumptions.
So after this deep dive, where do you stand, listener? Is the Book of Lies a source of answers, a collection of riddles, or something else entirely? It's a question worth pondering as you continue your own exploration of Crowley's work. And hey, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive. We hope you enjoyed this exploration of Aleister Crowley's Book of Lies,
It's been a wild ride.
to say the least. But seriously, we encourage you to check out the book for yourself and draw your own conclusions. Until next time, happy reading, and don't let the lies lead you astray.